Standard number 2 in the unit of cells is about the membranes of eukaryotic cells. So a couple things we need to understand here. One, what is a membrane? And two, what the heck is a eukaryotic cell? So let's start off with that eukaryotic cell first. First of all, there's two types of cells. You may have studied this before. One's called prokaryotes and one's called eukaryotes. Prokaryotes, if you've studied the organization of organisms, there's something called bacteria and there's something called archaea. Those are called prokaryotes. So things that are bacteria or archaea, prokaryotes. Eukaryotes is pretty much everything that you know and can see. Fungi, plants, animals, anything that you know, insects, those are all eukaryotic cells. Here on the left is a picture of a prokaryote, so notice the cell, how it looks like, versus this is a human cell from the uterus. This is a eukaryote. So to go more in depth, this is what a prokaryotic cell looks like. You should be able to draw one. It sort of looks like a hairy medicine pill. So you see, like, they call them fimbriae. Here are some of the organelles that they have. They don't have a nucleus. They have a nucleoid, ribosomes, a membrane. A membrane is the outside, like the shell of an M&M. It has a cell wall, so a bigger reinforcement in the membrane. The whole body is called a capsule, and these little tails are called flagella. So the difference between a prokaryote and eukaryote. First down, a breakdown of the words. Karyote means kernel. Pro, the prefix pro in this case means before, and eu means true. So before kernel means like the olden times. True meaning it's the actual, like, real cell. Prokaryotes have no nucleus and it's a bacteria. That's the easy way to remember the difference. Eukaryotes have a nucleus and a nuclear envelope. A nuclear envelope is like the shell of the nucleus. The DNA is in the nucleoid of a prokaryote. The DNA is in the nucleus of a eukaryote. They both have something called cytosol. We'll go over that. Prokaryotes only have one organelle, and that's ribosomes. Okay. Again, I told you an organelle means it's a fancy word for small organs. Versus eukaryotes, where they all have membrane bound, which means they all have their own shells of organelles with specialized structure and function. So think of it as it's a cell that has a whole bunch of organs, whereas prokaryotes only have one organ. Prokaryotes, because they're bacteria, they're very small. Eukaryotes are much larger. Prokaryotes are primitive, again, olden times. Eukaryotes are more complex. And the examples, prokaryotes are bacteria. Eukaryotes are plants, animals, things that you actually know. That's what a eukaryote is. So there's a little thing that we'll go over later in class about cell size and scale. So cells, part of the reason how cells work is they need stuff to get, they need nutrients, they need stuff to get inside the cell, and they also need to export stuff out of the cell really quickly. To do so, cells have to be small and maintain a large surface to volume ratio, which means they have to have a ton of surface area, but not so much volume. To have a large surface area means we can increase the rates of chemical exchange between the cell and the environment. So, long story short, if you have more surface area, that means I can get more stuff in and out. I can exchange stuff much quickly. This is a diagram that shows the difference between, take for example, this cube and this cube right here. This one is just one box. The total surface area is 150 if I measure it all. But this one, even though it's sort of like the same size, but it's sort of folded and has all these tiny boxes, it has a total surface area of 750. Both of them, if you look at them, they're the same box, so they both actually have the same volume. But this total surface ratio, the surface to volume ratio, is 6 when this one's only 1.2. So can you imagine, even though these are exact same cubes, this one can have more chemical exchange because there's way more surface area, even though the total volume is constant. So another way to think about it is, think of a box made of tiny boxes, or if you ever had a Christmas present that had a Christmas present inside a Christmas present, the more of those tiny folds or the more surface area I have, the better the cell is going to be. So give me an example, like, what do you mean by large surface area and smaller volume? Well, think about your small intestine. Your small intestine, if you've ever seen it, here's a smaller picture of it. That's where your body absorbs your food. So after you eat, like after you eat lunch or after you eat dinner, the small intestine, its whole job is just to pull the nutrients out of your food. Well, if it's going to pull nutrients out of your food, you want to have, the best possible way for it to get into your body. So the small intestine is actually the most highly folded surface in especially of the organs in your body, just so it can increase all the absorption of nutrients. So that's why people think it's disgusting, or if you ever see small intestines or see stuff like that, it's like, oh, it looks disgusting. It's because it has all these different folds. It has these little things called villi, They're little hairs. You could sort of kind of see them here. Not only do you have these large circular folds, but in those folds they have their own folds, these villi. And then those villi, here it is zoomed in, have their own folds. So they're projections on each cell, microvilli. So we have folds upon folds upon folds. So that's what we mean by how we need a high surface area to volume. So it goes from folds to villi to microvilli. So here's that villi picture blown up, and if I zoom in again into a piece of that villi, here's the microvilli, and each of those is each of those comes up with a cell, an epithelial cell, and that unit is called a lumen. In that lumen, again zooming in even more, again you can see even more folds, and this allows for things such as fatty acids, triglycerides, monoglycerides to pass through the body really quickly. So again, folds on folds on folds. And the last slide is the same thing is applied not only for us and small intestines, but also for plants. You may notice that roots or root hairs, if you ever pulled out a plant or seen the bottom of a plant, they have roots that have roots that have roots. By extending it that way, we increase the surface area so they can absorb water and minerals very quickly. So it's very rare when you see a plant that's just like one fat stem, like one fat root. They always have all these mini roots and mini branches so it can absorb water more quickly. So that's the second standard, that you understand two things, prokaryotes and eukaryotes, and also why plants and animals need a high surface area to volume ratio.